My name is Valerie. Hi everyone, my name is Valerie Briffa. I'm really excited to be here. I am a recruiter. I've been recruiting for a number of years. Just to give you guys a quick intro to who I am, my first job actually out of university was working at a recruitment agency. So I have agency experience, and I'll dive into that a little bit further afterwards, so you know, like the difference between different types of agencies. Later in life, and currently, I'm now doing recruiting for a company directly. So there is a little bit of a difference, but a lot of principles are still the same. Um, for many of you who might have spoken to a recruiter in the past, you might have experienced really great service where a recruiter wasn't just speaking with you on the phone, but they also helped you through your interview process. I was fortunate to have a lot of success early in my career in recruiting, and I do owe a lot of that to just being someone who's really big on mentorship and assisting people to excel in their interview process, and really pulling out the strengths of individuals so that they do an excellent job in the interview. So I'm excited to be here, and I thank you, Sonia, for reaching out to me and giving me this opportunity to be here today and share my knowledge with everyone who is attending. So wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, or hope you're having a great evening. Thank you so much for attending and listening to me here today, and I hope you get a lot out of this. Okay, so just to show you some of the topics we'll be covering, we're going to try to fly through some of the initial material so that we can spend a little bit more time on applying the information, and then into our question and answer period. So I'll explain to you guys who recruiters are, why are they calling you, what the purpose of this phone screening is, what to expect when a recruiter is calling. And I think what a lot of us are looking for is, how do you make a really lasting impression? We will dive into the do's and the don'ts of a phone screening, and then we'll get a chance to do a question and answer period. Okay, so I wanted to get a sense of who is in the room. So Sonia, if you happen to have that poll, I'd love to know a little bit about what kind of positions you guys are applying for currently. Not too sure how these these results populate, but I am interested in knowing which field everyone is in. Okay, so let's see here. So pretty mixed bunch, actually. We have most people in customer service and IT, some sales, manufacturing, construction. You know what? I wasn't expecting this what's the word? Such a broad different fields that are in here today. So that's wonderful. And then there's a large other field. So I'm curious what that is. Maybe we can you can add that into the Q&A section of the comments, and I can take a look at that afterwards. Okay, so thank you all for answering that. I should have actually screenshotted that so I could remember, but that's okay. I'm trying to get to the next slide. Oh, there we go. So sorry, I'm just trying to fix my screen here. There we go. So when companies need to hire, I just want to give you a bit of a background so you know how agencies actually get involved. So when a company needs to hire, typically what happens is they do their own hiring. So a company might have their own internal recruiter who does all the hiring for the company. Maybe they have someone called a talent acquisition specialist. You know, those are the kind of terms that we hear often. Or they might have their own human resources team. Okay, so that's typically when companies do their own hiring. Other companies, a lot of companies still use a recruiting agency. So this means, for example, at the company that I work for, I might say, if they ask me to hire someone in IT, I might say, you know what, that's not a skill set that I know very well, but there's agencies that specialize in IT networks and fields. So they might have the best database of people that, or, they might have the best recruiters to hire for IT developers. So then we might use an agency for that. Okay, so they also might hire an individual contractor, which is still a recruiter. They just have their own business. Okay, so when I refer to a recruiter, that's who I'm talking about. It could be from the company directly, it could be from an agency, or it could be an independent contractor. Okay, perfect. Okay, so my next poll is, have you ever been called by a recruiter before? Yes or no? Okay, so yes, so that's great. Well, a lot of you have had experience with a recruiter. I also just looked at the Q&A and I saw that a lot of you wrote in what your other skill sets are that you're applying for. So some of you mentioned accounting, market research, engineering, risk management. So thank you guys for giving me a little bit more insight into who is here today. Okay, so a lot of you kind of have familiarity with what recruiters do. And my next question is, I'd like to know how you think you presented yourself. Are you very satisfied, neutral, unsatisfied, or very unsatisfied? Okay, so some of us have said, most of us have said good, which is great. A lot of people neutral. I mean, again, it's pretty mixed. My goal today is to get you all to that very positive level. And you know what? The reality is there's always going to be somewhere where we're going to think like, oh, I could have done that better. That's completely normal. That is, the human experience. But my goal today is to get you to that next level. Okay. So you're going to listen to me talking for the next little bit. If you have any questions, just write them down and we'll go over them afterwards. So this is a process of how recruiters get involved and what leads to that phone call. Okay, so the typical process is that when a company is doing hiring, they might have their company recruiter or an agency post a role onto Indeed online. Maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's Indeed, maybe it's Monster.com. And at that point, your resume would be reviewed. Okay, so after people apply to the job, the recruiters will review all the resumes and they're going to assess, do your skills match the needs of the role? Or, or does it match the needs of maybe even a future role, right? If not, they won't call, okay? If yes, the recruiter will give you a call. And that, again, once that recruiter is from the company, the agency, or the independent recruiter. The other process is that agencies, so this is important to know that when you are applying to jobs, how important keywords are in your resume. So recruiters, if they learn about a job that needs to be filled, a lot of agencies have these pretty elaborate softwares that will populate keywords. So if I'm looking for, a mechanical engineer, I might type in, as a recruiter, mechanical engineering quotations. So I pull that, pull resumes with mechanical engineer in it. I might have like, mechanical blueprint or something like that. No keywords that would be associated to the job itself. And then basically all the resumes that have ever been, of people who've applied to jobs will populate. And then I would call those people, right? So it's a little bit of a different process, but you can see how important it is to have those keywords in your resume. Okay, So some things to keep in mind that when a recruiter calls, it's a phone screening. It's not an interview. Your screening, once again, is to assess what you're looking for first and foremost. It's not just about us, it's about you. We want to make sure that this is a good fit for you and the company. And that's the most important thing. The goal is for there to be a match. The second part of the purpose of the phone screening is also to get you interested in the company. Okay, so we want to assess what you're looking for, what your needs are, and then we want to sell you on the company. We want to have great candidates who are interested in our work and who will stay with our company and be loyal, right? So that might mean saying, you know what, you mentioned that you're a family man, or you have children. You know, we have benefits that would extend to your family independence as well. So that might also be an opportunity for us to sell you on the job, or to say, hey, this is actually a really big company. Sounds like your long-term goals are to grow in a company. Well, this is a great fit for you, right? So it's not just about seeing if you're a fit for the particular role, but it's also to give us a chance to share with you about the job and to assess what you want. All right, so you are getting your first phone call from a recruiter. I'm assuming all of you guys know that if you are applying to jobs, you should always keep your phone nearby, because you know that call could be the recruiter, it could be the company, you never know, right? But you might have that moment where you're like, oh no, like I'm in the middle of this presentation, I'm in the middle of, I'm in a noisy environment, this is not a good time. Don't worry about it. Okay, so this is what you can do. If you realize that it's a recruiter on the phone and it's not a good time to speak, just reschedule it. Okay, but here's the important thing. You need to reschedule it fast. Okay, sometimes these roles turn around quick, so reschedule it as quick as you can. Just simply say, hi, this is, thank you for calling. Hey, this is Valerie speaking. Thank you for calling. I'm just at work. It's a bit noisy right now. Can I call you back on my lunch break? Okay, and then ask the recruiter to send you an email, right? I'm in a noisy area right now. Do you mind calling me back in 20 minutes? And something that I do always suggest is asking the recruiter to emailing you their name and phone number so that you can call them back. Okay, if you miss the call, don't worry. Okay, so it's kind of similar to what I mentioned before. Check your voicemail, check your email. Typically, when a recruiter does call you, they will, and they don't get through, they will leave you a message, or they will send you an email. Okay, so just call the recruiter back at a time that's best for you. All right, so you're getting that call again, and this time we're going to answer it. Okay, so now it is a great time to speak. So we're going to take that accept button. We're in a good, comfortable position where we're moving away where it's quiet, and we're taking that call. So what you can expect when you first answer that phone is that a recruiter will answer and say something like, hi there, this is Valerie calling from ABC Company. Is this AJ speaking? Okay, great. So the reason I'm actually calling is because I recently received your resume in response to for an opening for an electrical technician. Is now an okay time to talk? And then you'll say, yeah, it's a great time to talk. And the recruiter will say something like, okay, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself, what you're looking for in your experience, and then I'll give you a chance to ask me anything you'd like about the company or the position. Does that sound good? And then hopefully you'll stay good, and then we'll move forward. So something that is important here that I mentioned is we want to let the recruiter set the tone, like set the pace of the interview. We want to let the recruiter lead the call. Okay, so I will dive into that afterwards, but that's kind of something that I found oftentimes as a recruiter is after introducing myself, I find some individuals very eager to just share everything with me. So I'll say like, is this an okay time to speak? Or does that sound good? They'll say yes. And then suddenly they'll tell me, oh, well, I studied this and this and this. I studied this and this and this. I worked here and I did this here. I would just, encourage everyone to let us lead, because we will ask those questions. And at the end, when there is an opportunity to ask questions, you can always bring those things up that you think are important. Okay. So I think we're pretty good on time. I just wanted to dive into some of the do's and don'ts. Okay. So, do. The first one I said is know your value. There is something to always keep in mind is that, yes, there's many people who can do the same job, but no one is you. It's important to know what value you bring to a company. Do you make other people's lives easier? Do you have a very bright personality where you light up the room and make others around you feel happy? Are you an exceptional worker who will stay late, or if you need to, who's always willing to learn more? Know your value. Go into that interview confident with your skills, or even if you don't have all the skills, your willingness to learn. That's important, and know that going into these calls. And I think that confidence really goes a long way in a phone screening. The next one is be enthusiastic and be polite. I'll be honest, sometimes as a recruiter, it's a long day of like picking up the phone and talking to people. And sometimes you get those like few people who just they're like, oh, hi, how are you? It's good to hear from you. Thank you so much for calling. And it really is, it brightens up my day as well. So remember, we're also just people on the other side. We also like to have connections with people. So be yourself. Just remember to be professional as well. So listening closely is very important. I will say there's a number of times that I am asking questions, and I've found that some individuals they will not answer my question directly, but they'll start talking about something else. So I encourage everyone to always really listen to the question being asked and stay on track. Okay, so that kind of leads into another do that I have. We already talked about this. Allow the recruiter to lead the call. And, it's not just because of, it's nothing for anything really super negative. But when you allow the recruiter to lead the call, what's happening when we're calling individuals is we're actually taking notes. We have in our head, or written down what types of things we're looking for, or, what might be important for a future role. And it keeps us organized. It keeps our minds focused on, the flow of the conversation and information. So if you let us lead the call, you'll often find that we will ask you everything that that you might want to share, especially if it's related to the job itself. Okay. Keep your answers concise. I'm actually going to talk about this on the next slide, so I will follow up on that. And staying on track. Definitely keep focus on the questions that are being asked. It helps the recruiter stay organized, make better notes. Speaking clearly. This is important. I know that it's my understanding that there's a number of individuals who would be immigrants to Canada. And I find this especially important if you do have an accent. A lot of feedback that I often give my candidates who are going in for interviews, or who I do have speaking on the phone, is I'll say, if I ask a question, take a moment and pause, especially if you're going in for interviews. This is a very good skill, or a very good tip, is to pause, respond back, when you're ready, after you gather your thoughts, just a brief pause, and then speak slowly and clearly. When you do have an accent, sometimes it can be a bit challenging. So if you focus on just speaking just a little bit slower, it actually makes a huge difference. We can hear you clearer. You actually sound very confident when people speak a little bit slower and very grounded. It's something that even I have to work on because I speak fast. but it's a really great tip to apply into your interviews, and if you're making presentations like this even. Okay. Use proper technical terms to the job. Okay, so if anyone here is, I've seen some people are in sales and marketing, you can talk about, how do you sell value? What is, use the proper terms. If you're an electrical engineer or a technician, feel free to talk about, blueprints, ROIs, RFQs, RFPs. If you are using oscilloscopes or certain tools, talk about those, use proper technical terms. Okay, so if you are, a project manager, use the actual terminology that a project manager would use. So these things are really important, and I think that I've found in the past that some individuals are nervous to use terminology because I don't know what it means. And that's true. Sometimes I don't know what it means. But if a recruiter doesn't understand, they'll usually ask, or they'll ask you to teach them. Okay, so something that I do is, for example, right now I was hiring an electrical technician recently, and I want someone who has experience with solenoids and sensors, photo eye sensors. I didn't know what that means. So I just asked someone, okay, so do you have experience with working with solenoids? Yes. Okay, can you explain to me what a solenoid is? Because I don't actually know. Sometimes you'll find a recruiter just very honest, and it actually gives you an opportunity to teach back. Okay, so use proper technical terms. We are looking for those keywords. And that kind of brings me to the next point, is to highlight your experience that's related to the job. We are looking for those keywords. If you remember the job that you're applying for, that the recruiter is calling for, definitely use those keywords and highlight the experience that's most applicable to that job. So if you're in customer service or office administration, and the position you applied for is an office administration, but focused maybe on, in a school environment, for example, or an office environment. Okay, so then in your interview, you should definitely focus on that experience in an office environment. Maybe the things that you did to make things more efficient, organized, how you made people's lives easier. Maybe you created a staff directory or updated lists. Maybe it was a mess when you went in, and then you came in and you made things more efficient, right? Those are great things to mention that are related to the position that you're applying for. Be honest. Be honest about your experience. Be honest about your salary expectations and what's important for you. I know some people, they want to be working remotely. That's important for them. I know some people, they have maybe 1 or 2 kids. Maybe they're a single parent. Everyone has different life circumstances. And some people will say, I cannot survive with less than, this amount of money, or this is what I need to contribute to the bills, right? If you know that's what you need, then just be honest about it, because then we can present you with, if this role that a recruiter is calling you for isn't a good fit, but you're very polite, you're very nice, you're very technical, we will say, like, maybe we can keep you in mind for a future opportunity that's more in line with what you're looking for, right? So I would always keep in mind that just because a recruiter is calling you for one position doesn't mean they might not consider you for a different one down the road. Okay, so never be discouraged. Always see it as an opportunity. Okay. Now, we often, for us to grow and evolve in our work and in our lives, it doesn't mean that we're not always doing things we know. Okay, so recruiters understand that a lot of people will not have all the experience. So if you lack certain experience, it's just good to say, like, I don't have that experience, but I'm willing to learn. We go back to that piece about being honest. If you don't have experience with certain things, you just be honest about it, and that's okay. Okay. I would say this is, if this is about really letting your personality come out as well. if a job that you saw sounds really great, or a company that you're learning about sounds wonderful, let the recruiter know, right? Let them know this sounds like a really great opportunity for me. I'd really like, this company sounds really great. I heard about it through someone else, and it's 4 or 5 kilometers away from my house. This would be so close for me. I'd love to work here, right? Let us know. We really like that enthusiasm. Okay, I did make a note here that sometimes recruiters, we do this thing where we pull the job away. So I'll use an example. A position might be 40 kilometers drive from your house. And I might say as a recruiter, you know what, like this job seems really far away from your house. I would rather, why don't we wait till, I find a job maybe closer to where you live, and present you for that instead, because I feel like this role would just be too far of a drive. And I don't know if this would be like the best, position for you in the long run. Right. But then, I think that's something that we do sometimes to see like if you agree, right? Like, and a lot of times it's honest. It comes from an honest place. There's people sometimes who apply for really minimum wage jobs who are living far drive away. And to be honest, I realize, why would you want to drive so far away or take a bus for an hour and a half for, every single day if it's one way for an hour and a half? That's not realistic, right? So if we pull the job away and you fully disagree, just be polite and just say, no, it's not a big deal. I actually have been, in my past roles, I've always driven 40 kilometers away. That's not a big deal at all. Or you might say, I'm actually moving into that area. That's why I'm applying to this area. So just let us know if you're interested if we pull the job away. Okay, so I hope that was insightful. I do want to move on to the don'ts now before we go into the Q&A. Okay, so don't take the call in a noisy environment, and don't overthink this. Don't overthink this call. It should be conversational. If you think it's an interview constantly, you might get more nervous. Just be yourself, be professional, and just enjoy the conversation. Okay, so we spoke about this before, speaking too fast. And I do think this is a really important point. I often see this, that individuals will ignore their experience from back home or another country. Okay, your experience from home is still experience, right? It's still real experience. Your education is still real education. It doesn't go away just because you've come to a different country, right? It's still valuable. It's still important. So if anyone tells you it's not, that's simply not true. It's great to upgrade your skills, get new education or current education, but I've seen some people actually fully remove their experience from back home on their resume. And I'll be honest, that makes me upset that people don't think that's relevant anymore, because it is. Okay, so I definitely would encourage everyone to remember that is valuable experience, and it shaped, what you know today, right? Okay, so this is a small tweak in just the way that we say things over the phone. But sometimes I found that people will say, we did this. If I said as a recruiter, oh, tell me about how what you did at this job. I found sometimes people will say like, we did this, we did that. Just a small switch in the way you say things. I would encourage everyone to say what you did specifically. Okay, so I was responsible for doing this. I was responsible for this. I did this, I did that. So what did I do? The next one is just avoid being pushy or aggressive. So for example, if a recruiter tells you if they don't call you back, it's not necessary to email them over and over again or to call over and over again. I think it's always good practice to be polite, say thank you, and welcome the opportunity to speak again about a future role. I didn't mention this before, but getting a phone screening and it's getting called is half the battle. Be proud that, your resume was great and that you got a call. Be proud that you had those keywords in there and that you had the opportunity to speak to someone. Remember that these calls, like I said before, and I'll repeat it as many times as I need to, just because you might not be a fit for one role doesn't mean you might not be a fit for a different role. Okay, a good recruiter will cross recruit and think, you know what, you're not a good fit for this role, but I know another role that could be a good one. And that's actually a really great thing about being called by an agency, because they usually know about lots of different positions. Whereas when you're called by a company recruiter, we're a bit limited as far as the positions that are open or what the projected hiring needs are. Over-explaining is the biggest don't. And this is actually really challenging. It's something that does require a lot of practice. And I did mention this in the do section, is to be concise. So for example, if I ask you, what did you do at this last company that you worked? What you should not do is tell me everything. Okay, what I'd like you to do is talk to me like you would a friend. So at ABC company, I'm a recruiter and I oversee the engagement projects. So I do the calling of individuals, screening, qualifying roles, and then assisting with onboarding. Okay, so 2 to 3 sentences max. Keep it short and sweet. The recruiter will always dig into the technical parts of the role. Okay, but if we bring in the past things I mentioned, like linking your experience to the current role, if you're an office administrator applying to a role for office administrator in an office or maybe a manufacturing environment, you can say, well, I've 7 years of experience in office administration. Oh, sorry, you can say, at this role, I was overseeing all office administrative functions in a manufacturing environment. That included answering phones, calling, doing accounts payable, and so on. Right? Keeping it short and sweet is so important. Okay, so I wanted to take this opportunity now to apply it to some questions you might be asked as a recruiter, from a recruiter. Some of the most general ones I would say are the following. What is your current career goal? Right, so I'll actually walk through these one by one. What is your current career goal? That's usually the first question I ask people. This is usually where people, the people who I mentioned said the over-explaining, it's very common. Oftentimes this question can really go sideways, because I'll say, what is your current career goal? And right away, people want to tell me everything. Oh, I studied this and I studied that and I did this and that, this company, I did this and that company. And then in the conversation, there's no pause, right? So sometimes I have to interrupt and say, okay, hold on a second. Let me walk you through these questions one by one and we'll get there, right? So just remember, keep it short and sweet. I'm looking for a role in marketing and sales, specifically in the IT industry, right? Short and sweet. I'm looking to be an electrical technician. I'm looking to be an office administrator, right? At a great company. Would you be interested in contract positions or long-term opportunities? Be honest. If you want a permanent role, say you're looking for something that's going to be permanent. What are your salary or pay expectations? This is important to be honest. I mentioned this already. Do your research, be realistic, and be honest. So manufacturing environments will often ask you which shift you're comfortable working, if that's days, nights, afternoons, and how far you're willing to commute to work. Okay, so when we're talking about the phone screening, there will definitely always be a big part of it that's specific to the job and the types of responsibilities that you'd be doing at in the company or in the role. Okay, so when we ask certain questions, what I really love to hear as a recruiter is when individuals like they help me out by actually saying like where they did certain things or maybe how often. Okay, so for example, I might say to someone, "Can you read architectural and mechanical drawings?" And some people will say yes. And then I'll prompt them and I'll say, "Okay, where do you have that experience?" And sometimes recruiters might not, right? And so I think it's always great to just say like, "Oh yes, absolutely. I've been reading drawings the last 5 years on a on a daily basis." Right? I study this. I've been doing it every day for the past 5 years. That's no problem, right? It's confident, quantifying experience. It's really it really spells out exactly what I'd like to know as a recruiter. Okay, so I gave an example before about tell me what you did at this company. 2 to 3 sentences max. I definitely encourage everyone to practice going through your resume chronologically and thinking, how can you explain what you did in just a few sentences? Remember when I said don't overthink it? This is the part, this is what I mean. Because before we talked about if you are talking to a friend, you would very simply say what you did in 2 to 3 sentences. So do the same thing. Don't overthink it. Okay, so tell me about your experience. Maybe that's in customer service, in troubleshooting equipment, in sales. Highlight your great experience. So, okay, so at this company, I did sales for manufacturing equipment. I was very successful in my role, and I was responsible for this, this, and this. Okay, keep it short and sweet once again. You might be asked to rate yourself on certain experience. I would say to be honest as well and express that willingness to learn if you don't have that experience. And you might be asked to actually explain a process, perform a task, and so on, right? So can you give me an example of a time that you had to troubleshoot a piece of equipment, right? Explain to me what you would do to reconcile an account, right? Explain to me what you would do if XYZ, right? So this is actually a great opportunity to the technicalities of how you would do things and explain your thought process. Once again, try not to answer super quickly. Stop, gather your thoughts, and then respond. The technical questions to assess your knowledge, absolutely. I think this kind of goes into the next question as well. But what software or tools do you have experience working with? I'd always recommend being very honest about what you're very proficient in. Okay, so I know I'm proficient in PowerPoint and Excel. I might not be so savvy in another software. Okay, so be very honest about what experience and tools that you have, because you don't want to waste anyone's time. You wouldn't want to go to an interview and be expected to do certain things if you don't actually have that experience. So always be honest about that type of that question. Okay, so I see that we have a number of questions. I'm going to move into the Q&A portion of this shortly. I just wanted to mention that when you are ending the call, it's always good to be gracious. Say thank you. Ask them to send you a follow-up or an email so that you have their contact information. And if you'd like, you're always welcome to send them an email and just say thank you for giving me a call. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to hearing from you. Okay. If you don't hear from them in a week or whatever that is, ask them to keep you in mind for future opportunities, right? You never know what could come out of that one phone call, right? One thing that I do like when people ask me at the end of a phone call is sometimes people ask, I do usually give everyone an option to ask me questions about the company or about the role. I'm always happy to answer that. And I do find that some people quite often now are saying, what are the next steps, right? So I'll tell them, so the next steps are that I'm actually going through a number of applicants. And at the end of the week, I'll be touching base with a hiring manager to review resumes And if all is well, then I'll be in contact with you to move forward with an interview. Okay, so it would look something like that. But I remember, always be gracious, enjoy your time on the call, and just be confident. Okay, so I wanted to turn it to you guys now to ask questions, and I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Valerie. That was great. We do have a lot of questions here. I'm just going to scroll down to the actual question here. Okay, the first question we have is, how do you build a relationship with a recruiter when all they do is ask you questions on the phone?
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I think that you can definitely ask questions to the recruiter. I would first start off like I said before about we enjoy like talking to people as well. So when I call people and they ask me how my day is going, I like that, you know. So if someone's calling you, say, "Oh wow, great to hear from you. How are you? How's your day going?" I think that's a really nice way to just set a good tone. You know, and they say, "I'm great. How are you?" "Oh, it's great. It's a beautiful day outside," right? You know, just share a little bit of personality, right? That's a really great way just to start it off on a great note, and let the recruiter lead. Like I said, it's kind of organic, right? Like you might say, like, you know, there might be a question. You know, if I'm using a technical example, they might ask you what kind of software you use. You could say, "Well, I use this ERP system, or I use QuickBooks. What do you guys use there? Do you use you know, a desktop QuickBooks, or is it on a PC? Is it, you know, you can ask, you know, have it more conversational, and then at the end you can ask more questions about the company, about the role, or hey, what do you like working about that? What do you like working about? What do you like about working for that company? So there is opportunities to ask questions as well.
Thank you. At what point do you bring up salary ranges?
They usually will ask you. So if they, but what some, if you, actually, this is something that I appreciate sometimes is there's been times I've called people who I thought might be looking for more money than what I can offer. And there have been times that I've said off the hop, you know, just before, I just want to be honest with you because I see you have a lot of experience. I'm just curious, like, what are your salary expectations, right? Some recruiters don't do that. And if you know, like, if you are firm, maybe you're already employed and you have a good job and you're really looking, it's important for you to have this next salary. You don't want to waste anyone's time. I personally appreciate it if someone politely says, you know, just to kind of, I don't want to take up any time. Just curious, like, what is the salary range for this role? I appreciate that question. I think that's a great question if that's what is really important to you at that moment.
Thank you. A lot of people are asking if they'll be able to watch this again. So yes, the link that you used today to join, in a couple of hours, you'll be able to click on that link again and watch the webinar again. You can share it with your network as well. And tomorrow you will get a link in the recording with the recording as well. The next question here is, what are some things that recruiters like to see in the objective sections of the resume?
Keywords. Yeah, keywords. So when you apply for every single job, always, what I personally do if I'm applying for jobs is if I'm looking at the job posting, I have a highlighter in my hand and I'm highlighting the keywords, right? Highlighting the keywords. Oh, okay, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. And then every time I apply for a job, I slightly modify all my objectives, like more my main. You usually in your resume you have the top section that's like your job profile or objectives, or your what's it called, overview of who you are. We call it different things, and you want to add those keywords. I just realized though that you asked me for the objective statement. I personally am not someone who I don't think objective lines are that. If you're so objective, the sentence, I would say you don't need to have an objective, but if you do have an objective, keep it short and sweet as well. 2 to 3 sentences max of what your experience is and what you're looking for. I apologize. I think I answered that question wrong initially.
No, thank you. You answered 2 different questions, actually,
Okay.
so that's great.
Okay, great.
How long does it take for employers to let you know if they're going to accept you after an interview?
After an interview?
Yeah.
Or a phone screening. So I guess after a phone screening, it varies. That's why I always recommend asking what the timeline is. I would say we usually want to have things turned around pretty fast. So I'd say usually by like the end of the week, usually after a week. I would say for both, a good time frame is a week. For interview processes, sometimes it can be faster as well. But just to avoid like the asking, worrying about it, I always ask, what are the next steps? When can I expect to hear back from you? Because then when you don't hear back, you're okay to like email them and say like, hi, just wanted to follow up. I'm still really interested in this role. When can I hear back from you?
Is it okay to connect with a recruiter after the phone interview? Maybe like send them a thank you note along with a LinkedIn request?
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely.
Are recruiters normally willing to share the company's salary ranges?
I'm just trying to think back to my agency days. For certain roles, there usually is a range. It's not necessarily confidential, but we do typically have like a range in mind. I don't think sometimes we wouldn't share the range because we want to consider we want you to be honest about what you're looking for. Because if I'm just giving you an example, if I ask someone what their expectations are first, they might tell me they're looking for $25 an hour, right? And if they're looking for $25 an hour and I know that up front, I know that they're already not going to be a fit because I know that I can only offer $20 an hour, right? But sometimes I find that if I tell them first that the role is $20 an hour, they'll suddenly say like, oh, look, I'm good with $20 an hour, but you're not good with $20 an hour because you just asked me for 25, right? So then I know that you're not going to stay at this company, right? Like we're looking for, remember I said at the very beginning, we're looking for a match. We're not looking for someone to just fill a role. We want you to be happy. So we are looking for the best interest of you and the company. And that's something to keep in mind. So always be honest about your salary expectations. And it doesn't hurt to ask.
Thank you. So kind of like a part 2 to that question, how do recruiters decide which candidates move forward in the hiring process?
Oh, that's a good question. So we look for certain skill sets, like the keywords I told you about, X amount of years, maybe, the way that you communicate, your professionality, your professionalism. We have a list because when we speak to the hiring managers of the company, or maybe our boss, for example, they're the ones with the relationship with the company. We know what a company is looking for in this role. And then at that point, we would present candidates who we think would be good for the position based on the discussions that we had, and we would present it to the hiring manager. So I might say, okay, I spoke with Sonia. She's, we might present it actually verbally or sometimes in email as well. And it's like selling like this person, like, okay, so I spoke to Sonia. She has this amount of experience. She's been working in this environment for this many years. She hits all the boxes and has all this experience. We think she'd be an excellent fit. Or I might say, okay, then we have Mohammed, who is actually has a lot more experience. His salary range is a little bit more on the higher side, but I just wanted to present this to you anyway, in case you wanted to see some more options. And he also fits all the boxes, so we do, that's kind of what it looks like. And then the hiring manager might say, okay, both of them sound great. Let's interview both of them, and then that's how things flow.
Thank you. How do you reach out to a recruiter? Are recruiters open to have people reach out to them?
Yes, I actually got my job now through calling an agency. So I think that there's, for some reason, a stigma about agencies. If you don't like one agency, guys, that's fair. Like just go to a different one. There's so many of them. But yeah, something to keep in mind is that recruiters will vouch for you. Like if you are a great candidate, you have great talents and skills, they will present you to potential companies and say like, hey, I found this great engineer. Are you looking for a sales, or hey, are you looking for a salesperson? I found this really great candidate. So absolutely reach out to agencies, build relationships. They may even ask you for a video interview as well, just to be proactive. So we always like to have big networks of good people so that we can call up when we need to.
All right, thank you so much, Valerie. Is there anything that you'd like to add before I move forward with my slides?
Sorry, I missed you. Can you repeat that last question?
Yes, I was just saying if there's anything else you'd like to share.
Sorry, just my screen went fell apart. Okay. You know what? There's nothing else I'd want to share. I just want to say thank you, all of you, for the great questions and your engagement. The interview process is challenging, but what I mentioned before about not being discouraged, it means like if you don't think you did well, or you got an interview but you didn't move to the next step, just remember like to take that energy or that anger or being upset and just apply to more and more jobs, because it really is a numbers game at the end of it all. You just have to keep pushing through, like focus less on what you didn't achieve or didn't get, and just keep applying. It's all about just the numbers. So thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to me.
Thank you so much, Valerie. That was great. And just for everyone to know, stay tuned for our May calendar. Valerie is coming back with another great informational webinar. So stay tuned. Our webinars will be posted sometime this week, or they might have already been posted. So check out our website for that. And thank you again, Valerie. I'd like to everyone to know about our last webinar of the month. It's called How to Successful Market Yourself to the Financial Service Industry. So if you are interested in working in the banking sector, join us to see how you can stand out. And as I mentioned, all of our programs are currently being held online. Take advantage, check out our website to see if you'd be suitable for any one of our programs. As for pre-arrival, I know a lot of people are not able to come to Canada right now, but if you are in the process of you've gotten your PR and you're just waiting to come to Canada, we can start helping you with your job search skills. You can email cec@accessemployment.ca and somebody will be able to start helping you with your job search before you arrive in Canada. And thank you again. Please stay in touch with us through our social media. See what's going on here at ACCES. Join us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So thank you all for joining today, and thank you so much, Valerie.
Thank you.